You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey there, and welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall, and as always, I'm so glad that you are here. So we're in the middle of our October solo series, and it's really all about helping you finish the year strong and really step into the new one with a lot of momentum, with a lot of fire. So each week, you're going to notice a thread running through everything that we talk about, and that is consistency. Not just in how often you show up, but in how you're seen, how you're remembered, and also how your business stays top of mind even when you're not in the room. And so this week's conversation is about visibility. And when I talk about visibility, I don't mean just posting more. I mean being known for what you do, being trusted for what you do, and also being chosen because people have seen you do it consistently. And I wanted to talk about this from the lens of us as Black entrepreneurs because I do feel like the reality does look a little different for us. We haven't always had platforms, we haven't always had connections, or that inside access that really open up doors for others. But I think now the game has really changed. Social media, podcasts, and digital tools, it has really given us the power to build our own platforms and control our own stories. And so we don't have to wait to be discovered anymore. We can decide to be seen. And so I think about my own journey of when I started Black to Business. I didn't have a network. I didn't have a platform. I was just this girl from rural Georgia moving to New York. But I did have a message and I had the choice to build something. So I did decide then I want to show up week after week, even when nobody was listening, even when nobody knew my name, even when nobody was clapping. And so over time, that visibility turned into credibility. And then the credibility opened doors. So today we're going to get into what visibility really means and why it matters so deeply for us as Black founders, and how social media and media has really shifted the game, and how we can start building credibility through content and doing it in a way that works for you. Because I'm a firm believer in that business is not one size fits all. So I always think about you have to do what works for you and your business. So with that being said, let's get into it. So let's talk about this visibility and why does it really matter for us as Black founders? Because visibility isn't just about being seen. It's about also being known for the work that you do and trusted to do it well. It's also about showing up so consistently that when opportunity shows up, it already knows your name. And so when you think about it, visibility has become this new currency of credibility. So with that, what I mean when I say that is people decide whether they believe in you based on what they've seen. They look at your content, they look at your consistency, they look at your message, and that visibility, it really shapes everything. It's how people decide if you're someone that they want to collaborate with, you're someone that they want to feature, or you're someone that they want to invest in. So it's like showing your work is your proof of work. And I say it's like your digital footprint that says, I've been doing this. I'm not new to this. And so every post, every podcast, every clip, every email, it's building your receipts. And the more visible your work becomes, the easier it is for people to remember you, refer you, and respect you in your lane. But I do want to be real that for us, visibility does carry, I think, this weight. It's like we come from this time and legacy of doing brilliant work without the spotlight. So we're going to do it anyway. And we've been building, innovating, and leading long before anyone thought about, okay, let me pull out a camera or let me put this on camera. And that's why I think that this conversation matters so much, especially in the time that we're in right now, because the game is changing. We're living in a time where visibility isn't something we wait for. It's something that we have to create. So social media, podcasts, YouTubes, these are all the new platforms that give us the power to tell our stories and do it our way. And with that, we don't need the permission to be seen anymore. We can document our journeys, we can show our expertise, and we can build our own credibility really just from a phone. And I think that that's so powerful because when you control your visibility, you also control your narrative. And you get to decide what people associate with your name, your business, and also your brand. So when I say visibility matters, I'm talking about more than just the followers. I'm talking about we got to think of this in terms of access to opportunities that might have once been behind closed doors, access to community, people who can amplify your work and connect you to the rooms that you haven't entered yet. And also access to credibility, because visibility makes your name recognizable in spaces where you've earned the right to be known. And we've all seen what happens when Black founders go viral. Suddenly everybody wants to talk about us. Everybody wants to pay attention. The press, the investors, the brands. But that moment of recognition doesn't make the work great. It just means people finally saw what you were doing and what was already excellent. And that's why visibility has to be a part of your strategy and not just an afterthought, because people cannot champion what they can't find. So, I like to get practical here. I want you to pause and think about this for a moment. Where are you consistently visible right now? Is it in the spaces that match where your business is going, or the ones that feel comfortable because they're familiar? And another question is, when people mention your name, what do they say you're known for? Is that the story you want to be told? And because every time you show up, through your content, through your message, through your presence, you're shaping that story. And that's what visibility really is. It's storytelling in motion. So now that we understand what visibility is, let's talk about what makes it so hard. Because it's one thing to say show up consistently, but it's another thing to actually do it. Especially when it comes to putting yourself out there, your stories, your ideas, and for everyone to see. For a lot of us, it comes with a lot of layers. It's not just about strategy, it's emotional. And there's the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being judged, the fear that if you get it wrong, people will remember the mistake more than they remember the message. And I get this because for a long time, many of us were taught to keep our head down, to do the work and let the work speak for itself. And we were told that humility meant silence, that excellence would speak eventually. But what we're realizing is now that silence doesn't build connection, visibility does. And I see this more and more because this was something I faced a lot. And we're in a time now where people want to see who's behind the company. And people get behind people a lot more these days as opposed to companies. And visibility with this means that you don't have to share everything. I think online, a lot of times we see a lot of people oversharing, but again, doing it your way. You don't have to share everything. It just means that you choose to show enough for people to trust the work is real and that you're the one that they should choose. And I want to be honest, there's also, when you put yourself out there, the pressure of perfection. It's that little voice that's saying, I'll start showing up once I have some better photos, or once I finally launch my website, or once I lose the fear of how I sound on video. But all that waiting is going to keep you invisible. And what I've learned, especially in this digital age, is that people are not looking for perfect anymore. They're looking for real. So they want to see the process. They want to see your perspective. They want to see your progress, because consistency will build more trust than the polish ever could. And I see this a lot when I post content. A lot of times it's like the content that I just post without a lot of editing, it gets the most engagement versus content that I put a lot of time in. And I'm like, this is what people like. But that's the authenticity as well. So with that being said, let's talk about on the other side of this, the exhaustion that can come with all of this. Because when you're a founder, the marketer, the creator, and sometimes the only person on your team, visibility honestly can feel like another job on top of your actual job. So on top of that, there's the weight of that representation, the quiet thought that I don't just represent me, I represent us. And that can make every post, every video, every word feel heavier than it should. But I want you to remember this. Being seen doesn't mean being exposed. It just means being present. So you can show up in a way that honors your boundaries and still builds that connection. Again, deciding what works for you. And you can also decide whether that's showing your face, sharing your voice, or letting your expertise speak through your content. The goal here is not to be everywhere, it's to be authentically where you are. And when you do that, when you show up as yourself consistently and intentionally, you make it easier for other Black founders to do the same. And I was listening to something the other day, and the person was saying they suffer from anxiety, and they were doing an interview. And before the interview started, well, in the beginning of the interview, the person said, "How are you feeling?" They're like, "I'm so nervous. I'm truly nervous right now." And when they got through the conversation, they mentioned that moment again. And they said, when I mentioned that, that was me building the muscle of getting over these anxious moments that I have about being seen. And so that gave them the courage to show up again and also feel like it was a safe space. So I think that people in that moment, I resonated with that person, and I feel like other people can resonate and say like, that's okay, or it makes it okay for me as well. And so you want to also share what those authentic moments are for you. And then you'd be surprised how people resonate with that, and then how they gravitate to you and your business. And so every time you post, every time you share your story, every time you claim space online, you're really expanding what visibility looks like for our community. And I'm a firm believer in we don't become what we don't see. So instead of chasing perfection, I want you to focus on progress, and progress that's honest, progress that's visible, and progress that gives people a reason to believe in what you're building, because keeping it real will always outlast the viral moment. So now that we talked about the emotional side of being seen, let's talk about the part that turns that visibility into opportunity, and that is consistency. Because visibility without consistency is like introducing yourself once and expecting people to remember your name forever. And it just doesn't work that way. People need to see you not just once, but repeatedly, to start trusting that you're really about what you say you're about. And that's what consistency does. It builds that familiarity. And familiarity builds trust, and trust is what's going to open those doors. So every time you show up, whether it's through a post or a podcast episode, through an email, or even just sharing a quick story, you're stacking up trust. And you're giving people another reason to believe in you, and also another reminder of why they should keep you top of mind. Now, at the same time, consistency doesn't mean you have to be everywhere. It just means that you have to build your rhythm that keeps your name and your message in the mix, and do it in a way that feels sustainable. So don't overdo it. And you want to think of consistency as your digital reputation. So it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think for many of us as Black entrepreneurs and founders, that kind of credibility is what shifts how people perceive our value when they're working with us. Because every time you post, every piece of content, every time you show up, you're not just marketing, you're also mentoring people on how to see you. And I'll tell you this podcast is actual proof of that. So when I started Black to Business, I wasn't getting interview requests. It was a lot of research and finding people. And I also wasn't getting a lot of partnerships or clients. or attention in general, but I was consistent. I kept swimming. I kept showing up week after week. And I did so with intention. And so over time, that consistency started speaking louder than probably a pitch ever could. And people began referencing old episodes and reaching out about something they'd heard like months ago, or sharing how a single topic changed how they were in their business. And I think that that's the power of consistent visibility. Your content keeps working long after you post it. So if you're in a space where you've ever felt like, I've been posting, Monique, and nobody's responding, I want you to remember this. Visibility compounds. So it builds over time, not overnight. And so every post, it's almost like you're planting a seed. So sometimes it blooms quickly, and then sometimes it's going to take a lot of time. But all of them are growing if you keep planting. And the key is really to find your lane and get and stay in a flow. And you don't have to do everything. You have to just show up somewhere with a purpose. So maybe for you, that's choosing one main platform, the place where your audience already spends time. And if your people are on LinkedIn, then focus on LinkedIn. If they're on Instagram, build your lane there. Or maybe if it's email, a weekly or monthly newsletter that keeps you connected to your community, that works as well. Then you decide what consistency looks like for your life, not someone else's life, for your schedule. It could be one post a week, a monthly newsletter, or it could be 2 reels every other week. I think that we get so caught up in the number of times, and I am a firm believer also in quality over quantity. So the number doesn't matter as much as the rhythm of showing up. Because when you create a pattern of showing up, you train your audience to expect you and to trust that you're going to deliver. And that trust, that's where the opportunity lies. And that's where referrals are going to come in. That's how partnerships and collaborations start. Not because you showed up once, but because you kept showing up long enough for people to take notice. So if you've been wondering whether your consistency even matters, this is your reminder that it does. And one day you'll realize that people have been watching even when you thought they weren't. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things is we send out a weekly newsletter with our podcast episodes that launch every Thursday. That newsletter comes out every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. And it was something that I just came up with. I was like, I'm going to commit to showing up every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. in people's inboxes. And I didn't think people would really notice. I can't tell you the amount of times that people have said, yeah, I look forward to my email every Thursday at 6:30 on the dot. So that's a reminder that people are noticing even the simplest things like the time. And that makes me feel great because it's like people are they're seeing the effort, they're seeing the consistency, and also we're at the same time building trust. So they know we're going to show up every week. So with that being said, now I want to talk about how to actually make all of this workable. Like, how are you going to do it? Because it's one thing to talk about why all of this matters, but it's another thing to sustain it when you're already doing a lot. And I know what that feels like when you're the one that's managing a lot of moving pieces in your business and you're having to show up for your audience. And on top of that, the content still has to get done. And this is why I say visibility doesn't have to be heavy. I'm big on simplicity. It just needs to be supported, meaning you don't have to do all of this manually, especially not in Q4, because when business is picking up, people are planning for next year and energy is running low. The holiday season is coming up. The key is to use tools that make this process of showing up easier for you. So for me, that's look like learning to lean on technology, and not as a replacement for my creativity, but as a partner in it. And so I use AI and automation to take some of this load off. And so things like caption writing, video ideas, or even organizing my content calendar. And I'm a big believer in that your message can be yours and still supported by tech. And that's how we keep our creativity alive without running ourselves in the ground, because it's only so many hours in a day and you can only do so much. And also, transparently, for us as Black founders, this is really more than about convenience. It's really about equity and us reclaiming our time. There's no debate about the fact that we've always had the vision. We've always been the most creative, but we've not always had the same access to big teams or marketing budgets. And so now the tools that used to be reserved for larger companies are right at our fingertips, and we can use them to level the playing field. And so that's exactly why we created the 30 days of content an hour shortcut, because I know what it feels like to want to be consistent, but you don't have the time to think about what to post, when to post it, or how to make it all fit into your marketing strategy. So what this shortcut does is it walks you through building a content plan for your business in just a few hours. So this is not something that's going to take weeks. And it uses AI to help you brainstorm your ideas that align with your goals. Also write caption drafts or outlines in your tone, and also batch and schedule content so that you can create once and then keep showing up. And it's the same system that we use behind the scenes here at Black to Business. And it's also how we've stayed consistent through the busy season, the lunches, the everything in between. And the one thing is, consistency is not about doing more. It's about making what you already do work harder for you. So if you've been in this space where you say, I want to be more visible, but I don't have the time, I think that you should consider getting this shortcut, and it's the way to change that. So you can grab the shortcut at blacktobusiness.com/shortcuts and start building your content plan. And also, stop trying to earn visibility through burnout. Start using these tools because they're here for a reason, so that they can help you create these systems so that you can work on your business and not in it. Okay? So as we wrap up today's conversation, I do want to remind you of this. Visibility doesn't happen overnight, but when you stay consistent, it is inevitable, because every time you show up, whether it's sharing your perspective, telling your story, or putting your work out there, you're teaching people how to see you. You're building trust, one post, one conversation, and one touch point at a time. And the beauty of all of this is you don't have to be everywhere. You just need to be present where it matters. So find out where your audience is. And for some of you, that might be going to Instagram. And for others, it might be going to TikTok or your newsletter or your podcast or YouTube. The platform doesn't make the impact. Your consistency does. So here's your challenge for the week. Choose one platform and define one visibility goal and commit to it for the next 30 days. And maybe that's showing up once a week with something valuable. Maybe it's starting your email list and sending your first message. Maybe it's sharing more of your process and letting people see the behind the scenes of what you're building. Whatever it is, make the decision to be intentional about being seen. Because when you commit to visibility, you're not just marketing, you are doing some legacy building work. And if you want support with that, don't forget to grab the 30 days of content in an hour shortcut at blacktobusiness.com/shortcuts. It's the same system we use to stay visible, organized, and also consistent, especially during the busy seasons. And remember, visibility is how you build credibility, how you stay top of mind, and how you create opportunities for yourself and also for the culture. So keep showing up, keep building boldly, and as always, keep pushing the culture forward. Later.